Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so welcome to the Bachman Kung Fu Music Station. And today I'm going to continue with this idea of an introductory guitar lesson. And I cleaned it up the lesson a little bit. As you can see, I'm going to go back to what I was talking about. And what you have here is you have this, okay? And what we're looking at is the idea of building a foundation, building a strong foundation on the guitar by using 7 notes. Now these are 7 natural notes, okay? So I'm gonna write natural notes, right? You can see that. And I want to make the point that they're natural notes. In other words, they are unaltered, and they're going to occupy a space on the fretboard, and they're always going to be there. And the idea is to use those 7 notes. They're all over the neck, first of all. And when you map the fretboard, you'll see they repeat in patterns. And what it does is it creates a grid on the fretboard that you can launch all your ideas off of. So it's definitely worth having a sense of why they're there, how they're there. And what happens is by learning this way, you're also developing a skill or tool to analyze the stuff that you're interested in, okay? And the stuff that you're curious about, you can use this method. It's really a 3-step process. Number 1, you write the number, you write out, number 1, you start with a note. So you start with C and just do the alphabet up to the point where it repeats. And you're gonna have 7 notes, plus there's gonna be another note, which is the same as the initial note. And it's actually called the octave, right? Octave. That's what that note is. So you can do that with any note. You can start somewhere and just go in order until you get back to that 8th note. And then you analyze it by using this particular format. Like this scale, this C major scale, gives you a formula. That is a formula that can be used to analyze any sequence of notes, really. But this is a good way to start and get a foundation for understanding what's on the fretboard. So what I said last time was that the whole fretboard is pretty much broken down into half steps and whole steps. That allows these 7 notes to be understood and recognized. And again, you're building a grid, you're building a platform which you can use to launch all kinds of ideas and associations, and it's really your fundamental foundation. So here's how it goes. As we said last time, it's about distances, okay? I use the word interval. And I know it applies to a lot of different things. It's a kind of it's a word that's applied to all kinds of things, but generally what it has to do with, in this context, is distance between notes. So the way that I'm using it is I'm calling the distance between these notes, I'm calling them intervals, okay? You can also think of them as an association between the particular notes in terms of sound and sound quality. But right now, we're just looking at it in terms of distances, okay? And the distance, you have two things that you want to get to place these notes on the fretboard. And that is, you want to understand that a whole step is 2 frets in distance, and a half step is 1 fret in distance. So, as we did last time, you have this approach, which is, and I broke it down here. There's 5 whole steps, and there's only 2 half steps, and that's up here, right? So C to D is a whole step, right? So what you can do is write whole, and this is a good thing to practice. Just this thing where you write out the scale, C to C, there's 7, 8 notes, and then you number them 1, 2 through 8, and then add this formula to recognize the distances and to get familiar with this. And so the next distance between notes is D to E, and that's going to be a whole step. E to F, you see here, right here, is a half step. And then you have F to G. F to G is a whole step. G to A, whole step. A to B, whole step. And B to C, half step. Okay, so that is your formula. So we get the idea that you have 5 whole steps. You have 5 notes that have 5 whole steps, okay? C to D, D to E, F to G, G to A to B, and you have only 2 that have half steps, B to C, E to F, okay? And so I write equal whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and B to C, sorry, B to C is a half step, and E to F is a half step. Okay. Now, I'm going to show another angle of this, which might be helpful. And you can see that, and then here's a close-up of the board. Okay, and this is really a goal to be able to look at your fretboard and see these notes. That's what results from practicing this type of an exercise. Ultimately, you just look at the board and you're like, okay, so if I want to do an exercise and I want to look and just think of C, where are all the C's on this fretboard? There's a C, right? There's a C. This fretboard, this is just up to the 16th fret, but these notes are going to stay there. And when you want to, just so you know, you can alter these notes to create new scales and new sounds that lead to new keys. And that's where it begins to really open up. And this is really the last concept I'm going to use on this lesson. Okay, so again, what you have is, you have, and this is how I would approach it. Let's just say you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay? And I'm going to number that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And I'm going to say whole step, whole step. There's your formula. Whole step, whole step, whole step, and half step. So you can just look where the half steps are. You know there's one at the end, and you know there's one between the E and the F down here. The rest are whole steps. Okay, so that gives you all your natural notes, and it maps out your fretboard. Now from there, you can recognize that there are two other ideas here that will activate these notes to mobilize them, okay? And that is that if you want to move one of these notes forward or up a half step, so the term is to sharpen it, okay? So if you want to move a note and you want to move it forward a half step, that would be sharpening the note. And they use this symbol like this. Okay, it's the hashtag number symbol. And what that means is sharp, right? So, and you can consider that moving forward one half step. Right? And then you're going to see this symbol, which means flat. And that is moving backward, backward, one half step. So you can flatten a note. And it alters the sound, it changes the character and the color of the note and the relationship to the other notes. And that's really the whole entire thing. I mean, essentially, you're going to have all these notes available to you, and you can experiment by flattening and sharpening them to see what kind of sounds you get. Now, I'm just going to do one example of what happens. And that is, if I take this note, right, the G, I'm going to do the same exact process here. I'm going to say G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, so again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I write the number line out because the numbers are going to become more and more useful in sort of categorizing the relationship, like what each note kind of means to this first note. The first note is the root. And the note that you designate as the root is going to establish the relationship with the other notes. And also other chords, and each one of these numbers represents a certain function in relation to the root and in relation to each other. So let's follow the formula here. Okay, so what you have here is G to A, and we know G to A is what? Is a whole step, right? So I'm going to put a W here, right? That's where it goes. Then you have A to B, and that's that, whole step. And then you have B to C, right? B to C, we know is a half step, right? C to D, whole step. D to E is a whole step. And then E to F is what? It's a half step. So right there, you can stop and look at your formula here, and it doesn't fit your formula because we know 6 to 7 should be a whole step, and that's how this works. That's what this formula is going to get you through all the major keys. Going through each note, you're going to find this happens in different places, and the way that you fix it, the way that you get it to follow this form here, is you apply the sharps and flats. So by adding a sharp, you're increasing it by a half step. And by adding a flat, you're flattening it. Right now, we're just using the sharps. And so what we do is we can put these cymbals up to the top right. I usually go to the top right of the note. Some people go to the left with the flats and right with the sharps. So you can see what I did here. I sharpened the F, and what that did was it added a half step to a half step. So half step plus half step equals whole step, right? And so now you have a whole step here, and it follows the formula. This is the formula, right? That's what you want to follow. Formula. That's how I spell it. Okay, so also when you sharpen the F, you made this distance a whole step, and you also decrease the distance between the F sharp and the F and the G, because now you reduce the distance from F to G, and you made that a half step, which falls in line with this formula. And that's real basic. That's how it goes. If you keep taking the fifth note and you keep doing this process, what you're going to find is there's going to be the next one is going to require 2 sharps, and then you take the fifth of that, and it's going to require 3 sharps, and then you do the next one, and it's 4 sharps, and so on. Okay. And so that's really just the basics. I wanted to get that out there just to let you know what it kind of leads to. I would just start with mapping out the fretboard, and once you get that, you can just kind of you can do 3 moves across the neck. So 1, 2, 1, 2. And that's that. So that's what I wanted to add to the prior lesson. And I know these kind of lessons are going kind of long. And I'm just kind of really working things out with the audio and the screenshots. I think this is a good screenshot. And this one is good. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to create a video and answer any questions. I'm really just working my way up to putting some topics on the table, and I'm not an expert in any of this stuff. I'm really just an enthusiast. And thank you for watching. And again, please subscribe, like, comment. Let me know if there's any questions. If you want to fact check anything, and let me know if I made any mistakes, I'd be happy to correct them. And have a great night. Take care.